here with Chief Creative Disruptor and friend Sarabeth Berk on our Berries for Breakfast podcast. And we've covered some issues around why hybridity matters in not only the world we're in, but the world we're headed towards. And we've also talked about some examples of being seen and showing our identities and making sure that people understand we're much more than our title. So I want to linger there in terms of, how we activate this and how we make sure that, leaders out there that are listening and thinking about their teams and their people really get a sense of this. You've known me for a long time, and I don't ever put the doctor in front of my name, but it's interesting how people see that or find that out once they learn about it in terms of higher ed, and they'll treat me differently if I put that on a title or put that on a piece of paper. When I'm often in education circles and people try to peg me as the business guy or to think about, what it means to go into edubusiness, they often don't know that I was a teacher or an assistant principal or a principal and that have sat in the seat of those roles. And then when I'm working at the intersection of business, people say, well, aren't you the educator or aren't you the trainer? And my constant response is, I hope so. I hope I'm all of those things to you, because that's going to bring a different skill set, a different lens into the work we do. So I think people have a hard time articulating their titles, a hard time articulating their value from that title. So I really want to go deeper on this notion that as you started to have those conversations with your peers, they saw you in different ways. So how does the listener think about a resume, a LinkedIn presence, a personal brand? How do they begin to actually act more than their title?
Oh, Bryan, you're hitting all my favorite topics. We could really talk for days. So I wrote a book because I realized no one had shared this information with me about you can be a hybrid professional. And then I created a workbook that's separate because I have a whole process on how do you find your hybridity and how do you brand and name it? I call that your hybrid title, because those are really key processes that nobody else has invented. That's why I'm sort of a pioneer in this, working at the intersection of career development, identity research, and personal branding. I have all these career development professionals coming to me saying, we want your tools. We've never seen this before. So, gosh, where do we even start with this one? From putting this into action, the beginning of this work is knowing your primary professional identities. So identity is a spectrum, right? We have many different identities: race, class, gender, age, ability, so forth. And professional identity is one sliver. So within that vein, what are the different identities you wear in your work? And then of all of those, which ones do you use the most? Which ones are showing up daily and that you love and enjoy and you want to be known for? Because most people don't even know that core bucket. And to be a hybrid, you have to have a minimum of 2 professional identities, because 2 identities makes 1 intersection. And I say the maximum limit is 4, because it gets too complicated after that. So 2, 3, or 4 primary professional identities is your foundation. And think of this like a recipe. You have to know your core ingredients when you're making something. And so when you dial into your primary identities, then you draw a Venn diagram and start to wonder, who am I at the intersection of those? That's the idea of in a recipe when you're combining, bacon and cheese and pineapple and salami, like what are you making, right?
Right.
And that's where this hybrid title comes in. There's actually an emergence of new keywords and language and themes that are very unique to you, because that's your secret sauce. It's your special blend. So for me, in my example, my primary professional identities are being an artist, educator, researcher, and designer. That's what I want to be known for. And if someone told me I can't be those identities tomorrow, part of me would be missing. That's how critical they are. When I combined those 4 identities together, I saw that I'm a challenger, and I was pushing people through interesting questions and using design thinking and making these visual graphics about data and doing strange things like that. And the key ideas that were emerging there were this challenger, creative, disruptor, pusher, things like that. And from that, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a creative disruptor.
Mm,
That's my hybrid title. That's
right.
actually the truest way for me to talk about who I am.
Mm,
And I can give very clear examples of what I do that ties back to the creative disruptor because it's all linked together. So my personal brand is defined by my hybrid title. Sarabeth, the creative disruptor,
mm,
is someone who's developing innovation strategies that radically connect people and ideas in new ways. It flows together.
mm,
So that's a little bit of the journey of how people need to do a lot of internal work. It's very introspective. Plus, you have to look at hard examples of what you're actually creating, what your products are, what you're doing to help you see who am I really in these moments. And then it becomes the recipe and the hybridity emerges out of that. But this is messy work. I made it sound kind of straightforward, but when I work with people, it's like they've never had this mirror held up to them
mm,
before. And it has to be a lot of questioning that metacognition, like, how do I really see myself? I've never thought about myself in these ways. And it's a beautiful process, but this is a new question I'm noticing people have just never thought about. Who
mm.
are you in the intersection of your identities? That's big.